Hi, today I'll recap a 1983 crime drama movie classic, Scarface. Welcome to Recap the Movies. Spoiler warning, turn on the subtitles, and let's go! The movie starts with Tony Montana, a Cuban man who wants to immigrate to the United States and is searching for the American dream. He is interrogated by some INS officials. After asking multiple questions, they spot a tattoo of a black heart with a pitchfork going through it, a well-known tattoo seen on hitmen. Tony is sent to a detention camp with other Cubans. On the way there, Tony encounters his old friend, Manny. After some time passes in the camp, Manny gets an offer from the Cuban mafia to kill a guy called Emilio Rebenga, Fidel Castro's former right-hand man, in exchange for green cards. Manny tells Tony about the offer. Tony agrees and kills Rebenga during a riot in the camp. After getting their green cards, Tony and Manny work as dishwashers in a taco shop. Later on, Omar Suarez stops by and offers them a job of unloading marijuana from a boat for $500, which is way too cheap for Tony. So he refuses and asks for $1,000. Omar comes up with another job, purchasing some cocaine from Colombians, for which Tony and Manny will receive $5,000. Tony agrees. Tony, Manny, Angel, and Chi-Chi then head to the location to buy the cocaine. Tony tells Angel to come with him and the rest stay in the car. He also tells them that if they are not back in 10 minutes, something has gone wrong. Angel and Tony meet Hector and they enter his apartment. Tony tries to negotiate with Hector, but Hector keeps stalling. Tony refuses to give him the money, so Hector decides to hold Tony and Angel hostage. Hector keeps asking about the money, but Tony still refuses to tell him. Hector then kills Angel with a chainsaw in the bathroom. For Tony, not being back within 10 minutes, Manny and Chi-Chi move to check out the apartment. A fight occurs and Manny gets shot in the shoulder. When Hector tries to escape, Tony chases him to the street and shoots him in the head. Finally, Tony takes the cocaine and they drive away. The following night, Tony and Manny meet up with Frank Lopez. Tony hands him the cocaine. Impressed, Frank hires Tony and Manny and takes them in. Tony also meets Frank Lopez's beautiful lady, Elvira Hancock. That evening, Frank takes him to a nightclub, the Babylon Club, a place Frank frequently visits. Even though Frank warns Tony against the excesses of the rich lifestyle, Tony is seduced by it anyway. This is where Tony's rise to power begins. A few months later, Tony is promoted to be Frank's lieutenant along with Manny. Tony grows more attracted to Elvira. Elvira notices it and dismisses him as a low-life gangster, even though she enjoys the attention Tony gives her. Trying to fix his relationship with his family, Tony visits them. Dressed in his fashionable suit, Tony's sister Gina is happy to see him. His mother, however, is not happy at all. Tony gives Gina a beautiful necklace and $1,000. "Who did you kill, Antonio?" says Tony's mother after seeing the money. She throws the money at him because to her, his money stinks. Tony walks out to his car. Gina tells him she doesn't care what her mother thinks. Tony secretly gives her the money and tells her to get back into the house. Because of Manny being a ladies' man, Tony warns him not to approach his sister when Manny is showing interest in Gina. A few months later, Tony is sent to Bolivia with Omar to purchase cocaine from the drug lord, Alejandro Sosa. Omar is supposed to do the talking. However, due to Omar's poor negotiating skills, Tony jumps in and saves the deal by offering a new deal, which is really expensive. Omar urges Tony to stop. Sosa seems to be on Omar's side and ends the deal. Omar is then being sent on a helicopter to go home and discusses a new deal with Frank. Sosa tells Tony to stay with him. Moments later, Sosa hands Tony binoculars to see a beat-up Omar hanging from the helicopter. It turns out Omar was an informant for the police. Sosa doesn't tolerate rats like Omar and warns Tony against betraying him. Tony assures him that he's honest and never betrays anyone. Seeing that Tony speaks from the heart, Sosa is impressed and strikes a deal with him. When Tony returns, Frank rages on him for starting a deal he cannot afford. However, Tony explains that Frank will receive a large amount of cocaine with this deal, and it will earn them many millions of dollars in the future. Frank warns Tony against greed for money and excessive ambition, but Tony doesn't care what Frank thinks. Tony seeks out Elvira and proposes to her. Shocked, Elvira says she'll think about it. Hearing about it, Frank decides to take out Tony. Later on in the Babylon Club, a detective, Mel Bernstein, approaches Tony and proposes to tax Tony on his illegal activities in exchange for police protection and information. But Tony refuses. After Bernstein leaves, Tony tells Manny he suspects Frank put Bernstein up to blackmailing him. A drunk Tony then sees his sister dancing with another drug dealer. The guy takes his sister to the bathroom with his hand on her bottom. Enraged, Tony follows them, kicks the guy away, and confronts his sister. In his rage, Tony slaps her in the face and has Manny drive her home. Sometime later, 2 hitmen try to kill Tony by shooting him. Tony survives and kills the 2 hitmen. Suspecting Frank of setting up the hit, Tony goes with Manny to confront Frank at his office with pistols in their hands. The detective Bernstein is there too. Frank admits he was the one behind the hit and begs Tony for his life, offering him money and Elvira. Frank also kneels before Tony and kisses his feet. Then Manny kills Frank. Bernstein, fearing for his life, offers Tony the chance to become his ally. Tony refuses and kills him as well. Frank's bodyguard, Ernie, stands there, frightened. Tony offers him a job as his bodyguard. Ernie agrees and thanks Tony. Tony rises more and more in power, becoming a powerful drug lord. He also begins a long-term profitable relationship with Sosa and marries Elvira. Living the rich life, he also buys Gina a beautiful salon. Over time, Tony becomes more paranoid as his wealth and power grows. Jerry, Tony's banker who launders his drug money, says that the money is too much, making the money laundering process harder, so he charges Tony with higher fees. Then Manny tells Tony about Mel Seidelbaum, a Jewish mobster who offered to help them with their money issue. While laundering the money, Seidelbaum turns out to be an undercover cop. Tony is arrested and bailed out later. Tony's lawyer tells him he has to serve 3 years in prison for tax evasion, even though he's cleared of the money laundering charges. Tony lets his lawyer know that he doesn't want to go back inside a jail cell ever again. Hearing about Tony's arrest, Sosa offers Tony a way out by having him assist his best hitman, Alberto, with a job. Sosa tells Tony about a Bolivian journalist who wants to expose him. The hit will take place in New York, and Alberto needs someone to show him around. Being out of options to stay out of prison, Tony reluctantly agrees. Tony's marriage with Elvira is crumbling. In a restaurant high on cocaine, he antagonizes his Elvira for her bad habits and not being able to get pregnant. Elvira lashes out at Tony and leaves. Tony delivers a speech about how the existence of bad guys like him is necessary for society. He also brags about his honesty and tells those around him how fake they are. Later on, Tony takes Alberto along with his 2 men, Chichi and Ernie. Alberto plants a bomb under the journalist's car. The next day, the journalist is seen getting into his car. He picks up his wife and kids. Not wanting to kill innocents, Tony tells Alberto to call it off, but Alberto insists on getting it done. Furious, Tony shoots him in the head. At some point, Tony discovers that Manny and Gina are missing and visits his mother to find out where Gina is. He gets Gina's whereabouts from her and leaves, ignoring his mother's angry tirade. Tony knocks on Gina's door, but Manny opens it wearing a robe. Tony looks upstairs and sees his sister is also in a robe. Tony suspects Manny has been sleeping with Gina and shoots Manny. A hysterical Gina tells him they secretly got married and wanted to surprise him. Tony, overcome with guilt, takes Gina to his mansion. The journalist has now exposed Sosa as a corrupt drug lord. Sosa, mad and furious, sends a squad to kill Tony that evening. Tony gets a call from Sosa, accuses him, and hangs up the phone. The squad kills most of Tony's bodyguards silently. Overcome with guilt for killing Manny, Tony snorts from a big pile of cocaine. His sister enters the office with a gun in her hand. Hysterically, she starts shooting randomly and hits Tony. However, an assassin emerges and shoots Gina. Tony throws the assassin from the balcony into a pool outside and shoots him. Robbed of the element of surprise, the hitmen attack the mansion in big numbers. Tony kneels by Gina's body, asking for forgiveness. However, hearing the gunshots and seeing Chichi get shot from the security camera on his door, Tony takes his M16 with a grenade launcher attached to it. The hitmen are walking upstairs and prepare to storm Tony's office. Overcome by rage, Tony shouts, "Say hello to my little friend," and fires a grenade. A legendary battle starts. Tony fights the hitmen, killing many of them. He gets shot in the process. Ignoring his gunshot wounds, Tony keeps fighting and fighting. His once shiny mansion is now becoming a war zone. Little does Tony know, a hitman is sneaking up behind him with a shotgun. The hitmen downstairs retaliate and all shoot at Tony at the same time, disarming him. However, Tony is still standing, bleeding massively. Suddenly, the shooting stops. Tony yells at the hitman and calls him out until he gets shot from behind. Tony falls into the pool, dead. The movie ends with the hitman watching Tony floating lifelessly in his pool. At the top of the pool are the words, "The world is yours." What did you think about this movie? Let me know down below in the comments. If you like this recap and want more, make sure to like and hit that subscribe button. If you didn't like this, please hit that dislike button twice.